Go back with me to Matthew chapter 25. And here in Matthew 25, look again at verse 31. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the holy angels with him, then he will sit on the throne of his glory, and all the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate them one from another, as a shepherd divides his sheep from the goats. Verse 33, and he will set the sheep on his right hand, but the goats on the left. So, this half, you're on my right hand, so you would be the sheep. Unfortunately, you chose to sit on the left today, so you are all goats over here. He's going to separate them. And look at the word, in verse 32, the word nations there. That's an important word for understanding the passage. The word nations here, it refers to the Gentiles, or the non-Jews. It's not talking about political nations or countries. Countries will not be gathered and judged as countries collectively at this judgment, but this is talking about individual Gentiles who will be judged. This is an individual judgment, not a national judgment. And so they'll be gathered together in Jerusalem and judged by Jesus Christ, both believers and unbelievers. During the tribulation period, people will become believers in Jesus Christ. You'll have believers that come through the tribulation, and here now when Jesus returns, he judges those who are on the earth at that time. The prophet Joel in the Old Testament spoke about this judgment of the Gentiles, and I want you to look at it with me. Joel chapter 3, if you can turn there for me. Joel 3. So what Jesus is referring to in Matthew 25 is spoken of in the Old Testament in Joel chapter 3. So he's not really introducing something new here. It's something old from Joel chapter 3. Joel chapter 3 verse 1. For behold, in those days, and at that time, so he's talking about in the future, when I bring back the captives of Judah and Jerusalem, he's going to regather the Jews back into their land in the last days. I will also gather all nations. And again, the word nations refers to Gentiles. I will also gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. And I will enter into judgment with them there. Note this, on account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, they have also divided up my land. Here he says all nations, or the Gentiles, will be brought down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. And the Lord says, and I will enter into judgment with them there on account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they've scattered among the nations, and they have also divided up my land. Jesus will gather all the Gentiles into the valley of Jehoshaphat for this judgment. The valley of Jehoshaphat is believed to be the Kidron Valley, which sits between the Temple Mount and the Mount of Olives. Jesus is on the Mount of Olives as he's giving this teaching. Just below the Mount of Olives is the Kidron Valley. That is believed to be the valley of Jehoshaphat. In fact, in the Kidron Valley, there's a little sign that says the Valley of Jehoshaphat. So it's believed to be the Valley of Jehoshaphat, and that will be the location where Jesus sits on his throne and judges the Gentiles. And Joel tells us here, please note this, that the Lord will judge the Gentiles on account of my people, my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations, and they've divided up the land of Israel, which God calls my land. And so Joel tells us the basis of this judgment will be the treatment of the Jewish people and the dividing up of the land of Israel during the tribulation period. That's the key to understanding what Jesus is saying in Matthew chapter 25. This judgment that will take place will be on the basis of the Jewish people and the dividing of the land. So the Gentiles living at the time of this judgment will be judged on the basis of how they treated the Jewish people during the tribulation period and what they did with the land of Israel. Did they participate in the mistreatment of the Jewish people? Or did they help the Jewish people during the tribulation? Turn back with me to Matthew 25. Now, that's the key to understanding and unlocking what Jesus says here in our passage. Jesus will sit on his throne in glory. Joel tells us it's going to be in the valley of Jehoshaphat, the Kidron Valley. The Gentiles will be gathered to him, and he will separate the Gentiles into two groups, like a shepherd who divides his sheep from his goats. Verse 33, he will set his sheep on his right hand. The right hand is the hand of favor. And he will put the goats on his left. Verse 34.